Hey, what's up? I'm Ryan Huffman. Welcome back to my two-part series on using flash. In the first part, we showed you how to use on-camera flash. Today, we're going to tackle off-camera flash. So today for this lesson, I'm going to be using just a monolight, right? Which is just a flash that has a battery pack built into it. But I do want to say one important thing about some of the settings on a flash. There's going to be times when you want to use faster shutter speeds. So most cameras, about a 1/200th of a second or 1/250th of a second is as fast as they can sync up with a flash. But if you have certain flashes, most flashes today, you can use what's called HSS or high speed shutter sync. As long as you enable that on your trigger and on your flash, you can use much faster shutter speeds. So just remember, if you're trying to take a shot at like 1/500th of a second and you see that your screen is partially black when you take the shot, it's because of that problem. You need to activate HSS on your flash if you have it. It's not a camera setting, it's a flash setting. Joining us today, I've got my model Hunter here. Before we even start to pose her or figure that out, what we want to do is first look at available light. We have a really large bank of windows over here that's facing actually away from the sun right now, so we're getting some really great diffused indirect light coming in. Then behind her we can see we've got some soft light kind of sconces, but obviously those are kind of having a yellow color cast to them, whereas the available light has more of a bluish, coolish color cast. And then we've got a little bit of light kind of bouncing off the wall over here, but not a whole lot because it's really diffused and really soft. When we're really kind of looking at what's happening, what light is hitting our model right now, we have a decent amount of backlight behind them. We have a good amount of light coming in through the window here, but we don't really have much light on this other side. So what we can do is we could take a shot with just the available light to kind of see what that looks like and see if we need, you know, some flash in there or what benefits the flash might give us. The thing that's really important to remember about using off-camera flash is something I like to do actually is just pretend like the flash does not even exist. Right? You're going to expose your background with the ambient light that you have. So your camera is going to be used to expose your background. That's very important. The person is going to be exposed by your flash. You can control the amount of light falling on the person with the flash, but the background, you're just filling it with ambient light. So if you want to underexpose your background, you're going to do it in your camera. But if you want to overexpose your subject, for instance, you're going to do that with your flash, right? Background is controlled by ambient light or your camera. Person or subject is controlled by your flash. If you make a change in your camera, you know, you change your aperture or shutter speed, you change your exposure in some way, you need to make a correlating change to your flash. So if you're going to underexpose your background, for instance, by a stop, then you need to increase the power on your flash by a stop. However, if you're going to overexpose your background by a stop, you need to decrease your power on your flash by a stop. So just make sure that whatever you do in your camera, you change it correlating into the flash as well. First of all, let's go ahead and take an available light shot just to kind of get a good idea of what we've got here. In this shot, what you can see is happening here is the background is properly exposed, but when I properly expose the background, the subject is a little bit underexposed. Now, in this particular case, the subject is just barely underexposed, but in many cases, the subject's going to be very, very underexposed. But if I want to try and control the background and the subject, you know, I'm going to try and get the background first in my camera correct, and now in order to expose the subject properly, I'm going to have to bring in a flash to expose them. We're going to bring in a flash and we're just going to kind of see what happens when we bring that flash in and what we can do with that light. And now give me a second to get the light set up. We can see that I've brought my flash into the scene and I'm using a large octabox here and I've got it kind of close because I'm going to use some soft lighting. So now we're going to go ahead and I've got it figured, the exposure figured out, and I'm going to go ahead and take the shot now. So as we take a look at the image that we've got here from using that flash, one of the first things we'll notice is the background is still properly exposed, but now the subject is also properly exposed. When you really kind of look at that lighting on the subject, the light is much more aesthetically pleasing on her. We're able to control where those shadows go. We're able to control the shadow density. And if we really kind of look at her eyes, they have a lot of life in them because that light has created a catch light in her eyes. So it just breathes a lot of life into the subject. We're able to, if we wanted to move that light around, we could really control where those shadows go. And right now, this is just a much more aesthetically pleasing image than if we were to just use available light. Now let's just say, like right now we have the subject properly exposed and the background properly exposed, but what if we wanted the background to be darker? What if we wanted to make it look like it was more of the evening time? Right now it's kind of mid-morning, but we could make it look like it's later in the evening. And all we would have to do to figure that out is change our camera settings to underexpose the ambient light in the background. So for instance, if you're at I think we're at 1/125th of a second and f2.8 were our aperture and shutter speed. If we wanted to underexpose that background a little more, then we could just bump up our shutter speed a little bit or close down our aperture a little bit. But understand that whenever you make those changes, especially aperture, we're going to start to control depth of field also. So we have to be, really smart about what changes we make. My ISO is already pretty low, so if I can only go about a half step lower than what I'm at now. So just understand that it's a constant balancing act. If I take from one area, I have to give to another, right? So in this case, with the settings I currently have, I think what I'd want to do is go up to maybe 1/250th of a second with my shutter speed, and that's about as high as I can go without having to worry about high-speed shutter sync. We can see that I've taken two shots here, and in these two shots we've got one with an underexposed background and one with an overexposed background. So you can see those settings here on the screen to kind of compare them, and while they're not massively under or overexposed, you can still see that there's a pretty good difference between the two, and they kind of emulate different times of day that they could have been taken. Okay, one last thing I want to show you. So far, every shot that we've taken has been open, the aperture has been open at like f2.8, so we've had a really shallow depth of field. But if you want deep depth of field, if you just want to be able to control your depth of field, obviously we do that through our aperture, but understand that whenever you change your aperture, so let's say I go from f2.8 to f8, right, you have to count how many stops am I going, and then you have to change your flash accordingly. So if I'm going to close down my lens by, let's say, 4 stops, then I need 4 stops more light out of my flash to be able to compensate for that. Sometimes you might not have that much power left in your flash, so you have to make a trade-off, right? So whenever you want to control your depth of field, do it through your aperture, but make sure that you have enough flash power one way or the other to control that as well. 1, 2, 3. You can see here on screen, this is an example of a shot with a deeper depth of field. This was shot at 1/125th of a second, f8, ISO 100. And the flash power setting was 1/4. All right, so we've shown you some tips and tricks today, and really from here, your limit's only just your imagination. So I hope you found this video insightful and helpful. If you want more tips like this, make sure to subscribe. It makes me a sad panda. I see the cops are making around this parking lot as if this matters. What are you doing? Come to the places that matters.
You?
Apparently.
Already said, hey, what's up? Welcome back to my 2-part series. Today I'm going to be using a flashpoint flash. These are great for when you want to take on location lighting to the next level, yada yada.
If Daniel won't change your mind, baby, 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 right on time. Out of control, but you're playing your role. Dun, 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 on the 18th hole. Available
So
light.
look a little less awesome back there, Hunter.
Yeah, like, can you slouch your shoulders and...
You relax, but not the itchy nose.
Yeah. God, dude, don't make me think about it. Are you talking to me? Oh. No, not yet. I mean, but you can come out whenever you want to.
I think this looks
Ravishing. Look at this.
We're gonna make a cameo finally in our video.
Auto white balance versus flash.
Oh.
Yeah, you do need to make a cameo, by the way.
You do.
Yeah, you need to be in. Wheel went to Williamsburg. Wheel.
One of the most important things that I want you to understand is that available light. What kind of text message?
I'm getting
Are you
an
getting?
Apple ID sign-in request. Intro's gonna be fine. We're gonna get it. Dale. On you down, on you down, on you down.
So,
You look like you have a nicotine patch.
for my settings, you don't have to say them out loud. I'm going to put them on the screen.
Hold on. I was daydreaming for a second. The Brad Pitt talent.
Hey y'all. This is my last video. I'm the person always behind the camera, and we're the ones always giggling about random songs and stuff like that. So this is my last one.
So I want to give it up to Chloe, because Chloe is the brains behind everything that happens. She even tells me what to say and everything. So all of you out there watching this video, it's all her.
Give
She
me a
does
round of
all.
applause.
She does all the work.
Bye.